Chief Petty Officer Daisy-023 was a Spartan-II serving in the UNSC Naval Special Warfare Command. During Operation Silent Storm in early 2526, she was a member of Gold Team, which was led by Joshua 029. Born on the planet Sargasso, Daisy was identified and selected by Dr. Halsey for her physical and intellectual talents. At the age of 6, in 2517, she was abducted and conscripted into the Spartan-II program. She was taken to the planet Reach, where she underwent training with the AI Deja and Chief Petty Officer Franklin Mendez, along with the other Spartan children. For the next 8 years, Daisy and her fellow Spartans endured rigorous physical and mental training programs, team exercises, and more. In March 2525, she and the other candidates underwent a series of augmentations to enhance their abilities. Daisy was among those who survived the procedure without being crippled or killed. When the Human Covenant War began in 2525, Daisy-023 and the other Spartans were brought to Reach, where Rear Admiral Michael Stanforth briefed them on the Covenant threat. In response, the training of the Spartans was accelerated, and in November 2525, they were sent to Chi-Seti 4 to receive their new Mjolnir-powered assault armor. While en route to Chi-Seti 4 aboard the UNSC Commonwealth, they were attacked by the Unrelenting, a Covenant warship. The Commonwealth managed to fend off the Unrelenting, and the Spartans were deployed to Chi-Seti 4 with Halsey, where they each received their armor. However, while returning to the Commonwealth, the Unrelenting resumed its attack on the frigate. To defend the Commonwealth, John 117 had Daisy and the other Spartans use thruster packs in an attempt to board the alien vessel and destroy it. Only John, Kelly, and Samuel managed to board, while Daisy and the others missed the Unrelenting but were recovered after the vessel was destroyed. A few weeks after the augmentations, Daisy and 4 other Spartans rebelled against their trainers, holding them at gunpoint in front of Dr. Halsey in order to escape. Halsey granted them freedom, and they fled Reach as stowaways, hoping to return home to their parents. Once Daisy arrived on her home planet of Sargasso, she discovered that the UNSC was already actively searching for her. She successfully evaded patrols and found her home, where she encountered a person almost identical to herself, who was wheelchair-bound in her garden. Daisy was then approached by a Hornet with Dr. Halsey on board. Halsey explained via comm that all the Spartans had been replaced by Flash clones when they were abducted to avoid raising suspicion about the missing children. She urged Daisy to return to her and the rest of the Spartans. Shocked, Daisy drew her pistol and approached her clone. The clone, confused and bewildered, stared at Daisy as she held her gun to its face. After much hesitation, Daisy lowered her weapon and began to leave. However, the clone called after her, offering a small teddy bear on a chain, not understanding why she felt compelled to give it to Daisy. After this encounter, Daisy returned to UNSC custody and was transported back to Reach. Her clone died shortly after on Sargasso. In early 2526, Daisy served as Gold Team's infiltration expert. On March 5th of that year, she, along with 11 other Spartans, was organized into an assault squad assigned to board and capture a Covenant warship called Radiant Arrow, which was orbiting the planet Netherop. The squad was deployed from the Prowler UNSC Starry Night for an EVA boarding action to accomplish this task. While aboard the vessel, a sensor operator on one of the Prowlers seemingly accidentally broadcast communication to the Spartans, revealing their presence to the Covenant crew. This was actually part of a plot orchestrated by the secret insurrectionist Hector Nieto to have the Spartans killed. Upon realizing that the accidental transmission had blown their cover, Daisy threatened to find and harm the operator responsible if they managed to escape the enemy vessel. With their presence now known, the Spartans encountered much greater resistance from the vessel's crew. John 117 managed to reach the bridge after a brief fight in a gravity lift, but the shipmaster activated the Radiant Arrow's self-destruct sequence, forcing all the Spartans to abandon ship immediately. Daisy escaped the blast alongside her teammates. On March 8, 2526, the UNSC initiated Operation Silent Storm, a mission in which the Spartans and the ODSTs of the 21st Space Assault Battalion were tasked with boarding Covenant warships to detonate them from within. During their slip-space journey to the first destination, Daisy and the other Spartans participated in training exercises with the ODSTs in the mission preparation hold of the UNSC Vanishing Point. The Spartans quickly outperformed the veteran Marines in each exercise until Staff Sergeant Avery Johnson introduced some unorthodox strategies that proved to be much more effective against the super soldiers. After 4 days, Colonel Marmon Crowther gathered the Black Daggers and the Spartans to explain his plan. He intended to split the Spartans up, with each of the 12 carrying a nuke meant for a single platoon. This approach could potentially destroy multiple targets simultaneously, but it would significantly reduce the Spartans' overall effectiveness. John, 117, expressed his disagreement with Crowther, who voiced his suspicions that they were just kids and therefore less reliable than his experienced Marines. In response, Daisy broke formation and confronted Crowther, who asked her to state her age. John urged her to stand down, but Daisy held her ground, asserting that their age did not matter. Their training made them superior. Crowther retorted that combat experience was more important. Upon the task force's arrival at Sioba, Biko's moon, on March 18, 2526, Colonel Crowther planned to execute a mass deployment of the Spartans and ODSTs into an ice quarry where they intended to wait for the Covenant. This exercise was dubbed Operation Ice Dance. However, entrenched insurgent forces were detected in the quarry, preparing to stage a coup against Biko's chancellor. Crowther decided to proceed with Ice Dance, but with the new objective of defeating the rebels. An intense battle ensued with the Spartans leading the charge. Blue Team focused on destroying a convoy of civets that were repairing the rebels' damaged communications relay, while Daisy and Gold Team engaged elsewhere. Ultimately, the insurgents were defeated, and the quarry came under UNSC control. The following day, Captain Halima Ascot, commander of Task Force Yama and captain of a Starry Night, held a meeting to discuss the events of the previous day's battle. John was reprimanded for his maverick actions at the battle's onset, and the experience of his Spartans was again questioned. Due to some sly comments from Nito, the truth about their young ages was revealed to the few personnel present at the meeting. Upon realizing this, Colonel Crowther refused to send the Spartans into battle again, instead ordering them to guard the captured insurgents and prepare them for transport to Biko for processing. While this meeting was occurring, a Covenant flotilla was detected entering the system and heading for Sioba. As the rest of Task Force Yama mobilized to confront the alien vessels, Daisy and the other Spartans were sent to Subsurface Maintenance Grotto. They would direct the captured insurgents onto a transport. While the line of roughly 300 prisoners marched onto the vessel, John noticed that a group of them were hiding the presence of an officer, General Harper Garvin of the United Rebel Front. He ordered the officer to step forward, but another rebel presented herself instead, clearly trying to stall for Garvin. To show that he meant business, John grabbed the woman by her tunic lapels and threatened her with summary execution for interfering with a guard while on the field of combat, as per the UNSC Military Code of Conduct. John's plan worked, and General Garvin presented himself. He began trying to pry information out of John, but this effort was interrupted when a situation with Captain Ascot's flagship was relayed over the task force's command channel. The Starry Night had been shot down on takeoff, crash landing back into the quarry. Crowther was unable to send a unit of his Black Daggers to search for survivors without putting more prowlers at risk. Since they were the only unit available to assist, John decided that he and his Spartans would go for the Starry Night once the transport was loaded. After sending Garvin back to his people and ordering the transport pilot to launch, John had his Spartans move out, much to the concern of Kurt, 051, and Joshua, 029, Gold Team's leader. Not only would they be disobeying a direct order from Crowther, but operating without the support of the task force in such a situation would be very risky. Daisy and the others proceeded to the grotto's access vestibule and entered its airlock, sealing the inner hatch. With that, They stepped out into the dense sublimation fog enshrouding the quarry floor. Visibility was so poor that each of the Spartans could barely even see the ends of their rifles, but the flashes of plasma bolts could be seen dancing through the clouds above. John accessed the command channel and requested a waypoint leading to the downed prowler. Crowther quickly responded by asking what he thought he was doing. John stated that they were checking on the status of the Starry Night, as they were the only unit that could do so at the moment, carefully choosing his words so that Crowther could deflect blame onto the Spartan if need be. This would make it more likely for Crowther to not stand in the way of their self-assigned mission. While John waited for a response, he signaled Joshua and Kurt to spread out their teams in a 100-meter wide search line. Daisy and the rest of Gold Team spaced out on the right of the more tightly gathered Blue Team, as Green Team spaced out on the left. In doing this, the Spartans would be more likely to find any debris from the Starry Night that might have otherwise been missed in the fog. John also ordered them to advance at a trotting speed, leading them away from the dockyards where Blue Team had engaged insurgents the day before. When Crowther still had not responded, John added over the command channel that they would simply take a look at the crash site and report what they found. With that reassurance, Crowther replied and acknowledged John's plan, but ordered him to not take action unless immediately warranted. He also informed the Spartans of Biko's naval response to the alien bombardment of Cioba, and that Nito believed that the small Covenant flotilla would either be in full retreat or destroyed within the hour by the approaching overwhelming force. An inexact waypoint was placed on each of the Spartans' HUDs, and John had them adjust course to match the new trajectory. With the fog still as dense as ever, John ordered them all to advance at a full run while keeping their eyes on their feet, since that was all they could see anyway. As they ran, the transport departed from the grotto and flew over the Spartans, churning up the fog and allowing a brief moment of visibility. Through the haze, they could see 5 Covenant vessels fire towards the ship as it crested the horizon. As the Spartans neared the provided waypoint, the fog had lowered to shoulder height, allowing them to discover that the Starry Night was indeed seemingly intact, but sat atop a large avalanche about 700 meters up the quarry wall. Frederick, 104, spotted a Covenant intrusion corvette sliding over the rim of the quarry and descending over the prowler. Kelly, 087, theorized that they may be trying to recover the Starry Night themselves. Realizing the danger, John declared to his teammates that the mission was no longer a rescue mission. Their primary objective was now to deny the Covenant from recovering the Prowler and the data stored within. Opening the command channel again, he relayed this information to Crowther, who echoed John's concerns and insisted that they could not let the Covenant take possession of the Starry Night. The vessel's navigation computer and other onboard data devices could reveal the locations of UNSC outposts, entire force deployments, or worse. Crowther asked Nito if there was any way that the Prowler's nuclear self-destruct system could be remotely activated, to which the lieutenant commander responded in the affirmative. However, there were only 3 positions that had access to that ability. The first 2 were the flight commander and wing commander, both of which were roles held by Captain Ascot, who was either dead or unable to be reached aboard the Starry Night. The final person with the ability to remotely detonate the Prowler was the captain of the Vanishing Point, which was holding station 2 planetary orbits out from Cioba.
Not just me, sir.
At that distance, it would take nearly an hour for the request to be sent to the cruiser and for the return signal to arrive. By then, the Covenant might already have retrieved sensitive data from the wrecked Prowler. Crowther began to reluctantly order the Spartans to prevent the Starry Night's capture, but John cut him off, assuring him that they would not fail. The Spartan requested that Task Force Yama assist them by keeping the assaulting corvettes off their backs. Nito began to say that their Prowlers were not designed for ship-to-ship combat when Crowther interrupted him, promising that they would find a way. Crowther started to tell John to stand by for instructions on how to manually activate the Prowler's self-destruct, but he reassured the colonel that his Spartans already knew how to activate a nuke. Just then, a Covenant ghost appeared out of the fog, firing at John, who deftly killed its Jiralhani driver with his assault rifle underbarrel grenade launcher. Shortly after that was handled, more ghosts entered the quarry. So John ordered
Negative.
green and gold teams to
have the
deal
gun.
with them as blue team
Good luck,
went with
sir.
him to the Prowler. At this point,
luck
the
to you,
looming
sir.
intrusion corvette had begun deploying EVA-equipped Sangaili, Jiralhani, and Kigyar warriors via gravity lift, with the first already looking for a way inside the ship. Another corvette crested the edge of the quarry, firing its main cannon on the Spartans. A plasma bolt narrowly missed John
All right, Corporal.
and crashed into the
Stay put.
fog-filled
We'll get
quarry
you
floor.
combat surgeon.
Grace 093 was caught in the blast
Plasma
radius and cried out over Squadcom, prompting
take
Joshua
that,
to
Steve.
order
Watch your
Daisy
domain.
to tend her injured
I got a
teammate.
live one over
Before he
here.
had even finished giving the order, Daisy was already at Grace's side. With the situation quickly deteriorating and Nito's support still setting up, John realized that immediate action was necessary.
Keep still.
He ordered Blue Team to simultaneously fire on the Avalanche just below the Starry Night with their grenade launchers to cause the vessel to fall to quarry floor and prevent the Covenant from gaining entrance. Despite Fred and Kelly's warnings that such an action could bring the whole slope down on top of them, each member of the team acknowledged and followed his order. As they had feared, the volley of grenades worked a bit too well, bringing the Avalanche down on top of all 12 Spartans, but successfully delaying the Covenant in their boarding attempt. 6 of the Spartans were buried under the ice floe, with Daisy's teammate, Naomi 010, becoming completely incapacitated. John 117 was also buried, but not totally immobilized. While he worked on freeing himself, John gave Fred command of the mission to board and destroy the Starry Night. Fred and 2 other Spartans boarded the Prowler as the available members of Gold and Green teams coordinated attacks on the seemingly endless stream of enemy ground vehicles, supported by at least 3 Covenant corvettes. John freed himself from the ice floe and began helping repel would-be boarders while Fred's team prepared the vessel's nuclear weapon. Meanwhile, Nito's support finally arrived in the form of strafing runs that destroyed 2 of the intrusion corvettes assaulting Gold and Green teams. Just as the nuke was finished arming, the looming Covenant corvette finally made its move and began slowly levitating the Starry Night up and into its hold using a gravity lift. John ordered Fred's team to activate the nuke and flee from the Prowler with the surviving crew, which they did via escape pod. He also warned the others that the nuke would detonate in 30 seconds, urging them to escape the blast radius immediately. Each of the Spartans made it to safety, including Daisy. Colonel Crowther extracted them after the resulting electromagnetic pulse had dissipated. The blast also destroyed the intrusion corvette, and some of the Spartans assisted in the recovery of a Star Hello from its wreckage. They and the Star Hello were transported back to the vanishing point. On March 20th, the 6 Spartans that had not been confined to the infirmary attended a funeral service for the 203 men and women who lost their lives at Siova. Held in the command hangar of the vanishing point as it sat in a high parabolic orbit around Baiko, the ceremony included an honor company of 101 enlisted personnel in their dress blues, including the 6 Spartans and Avery Johnson. After the service, Lieutenant Commander Nito, now the de facto commander of Task Force Yama after Ascot's death, approached John 117, who asked if he'd reconsider sidelining them. Nito promised that the Spartans would be seeing all the action they could handle for the rest of the operation. However, Crowther again contested this on the basis of them being too young, forcing the lieutenant commander to back down by threatening him with a report to a UNSC board of inquiry. The Black Daggers would board the incoming fleet alone. As everyone left the hangar, Crowther revealed to Johnson that he did not trust Nito. He believed that the Spartans were combat ready, and he was instead sending them on a mission to disrupt Covenant supply lines at Eidolon. That same day, Daisy-023, the other Spartans, Staff Sergeant Johnson, and Dr. Halsey left the Kalikoa system aboard the Vanishing Point, with 2 Prowlers trailing them as escort. 2 days later, the 3 ships dropped out of slipspace at Eidolon, and the Vanishing Point's analysts spent the next 4 days observing the logistics fleet's movements, trying to discern which vessels should be targeted first. By March 26th, They felt confident that 4 of the fleet's 15 vessels were equipment freighters carrying spare parts and other materials that would be used to keep the fleet of inexorable obedience operational. At this point, the logistics fleet was seemingly preparing to leave Eidolon, evidenced by the fact that they had begun syncing their orbits and bringing their fusion reactors to full power. As time was running out, Daisy, the rest of Gold Team, and Green Team were deployed in Space Striker with the objective of destroying the equipment freighters while Blue Team remained on the vanishing point, preparing for their phase of the attack. Gold and Green Teams were split up into groups of 2 to pilot each of their baselets. The 4 Spartan Man fighters flew at the center of a formation of 20 total baselets. The plan was for the squadron to pierce through the logistics vessel screen of Banshees and Seraphs. Then the 8 Spartans would go EV after faking the destruction of their baselets. To camouflage their approach, their fighters were equipped with pods of chain-link debris that would deploy upon the craft destruction. Then, the Spartans would board the target vessels and plant their Havoc nukes before fleeing. Due to the high risk involved with performing such maneuvers, both teams were given strict orders to abort the mission if it became apparent that they would not reach their targets. After Blue Team launched from the vanishing point in the captured Banshees from the Radiant Arrow, they managed to infiltrate a larger formation of Covenant fighters. With that, the next phase of the mission began as Daisy and the rest of Gold Team ejected from their baselets while Green Team did the same. As planned, the 8 Spartans boarded the 4 equipment freighters, planted their nukes, and abandoned ship before the nukes detonated. The 4th detonation disabled the Banshee formation that Blue Team had infiltrated, forcing them to go EV. Afterwards, when the 2 escort prowlers moved to extract the Spartans of Gold and Green Teams from orbit over Eidolon, their retrieval caused an unintentional diversion that drew attention away from Blue Team as they destroyed the logistics fleet's air skimmers. After the success of Operation Silent Storm, Daisy voiced her desire to avenge Colonel Marmon Crowther by going AWOL and hunting down Nito for his betrayal. At this, she was reprimanded by Sergeant Avery Johnson and now Master Chief John 117 for acting as if the success of the operation meant the end of the war. John reassured her that they would one day find Hector, stating that the Spartans needed to continue fighting together in order to honor Crowther and his legacy. In response, Daisy affirmed her support for the Master Chief. At some point during the Human Covenant War, Daisy participated in a battle on an unknown war-torn planet, where she rescued several Marines pinned down by Covenant fire. She then assisted in escorting them to an evacuation point, where she met up with Ralph 103, a former Spartan-II who had previously escaped with her in 2525 and was now serving as a Marine after his dismissal from the program. As their evacuation Pelican landed, however, Daisy was shot when covering Hauser and impaled by needler rounds. Ralph, who was now aboard the Pelican, attempted to assist her, but she instead yelled for him and the remaining Marines to retreat. Attempting to provide covering fire for their escape, Daisy drew her pistol and fired on Covenant forces. Her efforts, however, were in vain as Ralph and the other Marines were soon killed when their Pelican was destroyed by fuel rod gunfire. Devastated, Daisy, wounded and unable to move, died where she lay. Her body was later found by the Master Chief, who laid Daisy's teddy bear chain in her hands and closed her eyes in a solemn gesture of respect. If you learned something new about Daisy, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more Halo lore.